We would like to start this episode by mentioning the sad passing of Max von Sydow, who played Lor San Tekka in The Force Awakens. We recorded this episode before the news of his death, but would like to pay tribute to his contribution not only to Star Wars, but to cinema as a whole. Hello there, and welcome to the third episode of How Uncivilized, a podcast where two cool dudes explore the galaxy together, all the way to the unknown regions of Star Wars lore. Strap yourself in for an amusing chat on the origins of our favourite angsty-teen-flavoured character as we venture into episode 3 of the How Uncivilized Podcast.
How does this work?
You talk
first, I talk first.
What's going on?
Why
don't you just talk? If you talking...
Hello,
if you talking... We'll do that again.
Okay. I'm going to keep this, so you may as well go.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another podcast, another episode of How Uncivilized. I say episode quite lightly, but I imagine this will run out into multiple episodes again. But, you know, we haven't changed the format at all, so I imagine we'll still just be talking as much as last time. But yeah, here today running through a nice fat list of 7 questions again. Yeah, we're looking forward to talking to you about Kylo Ren this time. Isn't that right, Charlie?
Yes, hello, I'm here too.
Yes, Charlie is here.
The episode today is the Kylo Ren episode. Like episodes 1 and 2 were kind of some general questions we had, but now we're into the thick of it. It's time for actual themes and actual themes for the episode. Oh, that was not worth the wait. But anyway, today's the Kylo Ren episode. We've got a bunch of questions about Kylo Ren, 7 in total. 4 are from past Charlie. So if you remember from all the way back in episode 1, the way this works was past Charlie in 2015 wrote a bunch of questions about Kylo Ren having just seen The Force Awakens. And we are here now in 2020 to get them answered.
Yeah, we're going to examine Charlie's questions. And just to sort of level out the sanity from the insanity, I've decided to add a few questions of my own as well into the mix. So,
absolutely, you've been given 3 this time as well.
Wow, I know, I've been treated
very charitable on my behalf. Yeah,
well, the gods of this podcast appear to be in my favour. So, well, with that in mind, and that we're delving into Kylo Ren, let's go through the list of questions. So, the first question is, how did Kylo Ren get Vader's mask? I just dropped my notes there. If you
nicely done.
The second one was, how old was Kylo Ren when he turned to the dark side? Third question is, what is Kylo Ren?
What? No.
I'm joking.
What is a Kylo Ren?
Third question is, what is Kylo Ren now finishing that Darth Vader supposedly started? Now, obviously, that comes from famous line, I will finish what you started, that you hear, I think, in the trailer of the last season.
Yeah, you hear it in the trailer, but it's also obviously in the film.
Yeah, of course,
Force Awakens. Yeah.
And then the fourth question is, why didn't Kylo Ren immediately sense that there was something off with Finn and remove him from any further stormtrooper missions?
Yeah, that's a very specific one. The rest of them are kind of more general things, really, about lore and stuff. That one at the end is a bit more fun. It's a very specific thing that I did that one, so I had to really dig deep to find the answer for that. And,
it's kind of more philosophical than factual, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then obviously those are Charlie's questions, the first 4. Then I had 3 questions. Charlie, do you want to tell us what those are?
I do indeed. So the first one was, how did Kylo Ren go about building his lightsaber, and why is it the way that it is, where it's all sparky and it's got the famous crossbar, which we all know and love now. So how did that come about? The next question is, what is Rey and Kylo's Force bond, their connection, which for me was, one of the most interesting parts of the films.
It was incredibly interesting, but equally at the same time rather ambiguous, shall we say.
Absolutely. So we're gonna delve into that a bit more. And then the third and final question for this episode, or these episodes at least, is Kylo and his use of the Force. So it's a few different questions. How does Kylo use the Force? How Force sensitive is he in comparison with other Skywalkers, other Jedis? All that kind of tasty stuff about his relationship with that ever-present Force.
We love a bit of Kylo Ren. So with that in mind, I'm going to kick us off today as I was tasked with gaining the information on how did Kylo Ren get Vader's mask.
Absolutely, looking forward to it.
Well,
do you want to give us some context?
Well, I'll gladly give some context, definitely. So the story behind this question, it appears in a short novel.
Okay.
As does most of these questions that we have come up with based on the films, because basically these books come out, it would appear, the books come out to sort of fill in the gaps.
Yeah, that's what we rely on for these things, you know.
Yeah, we rely on these writers who have put their spin on thing. LucasArts have given them the go-ahead.
Yeah.
And all of the books, I think, written after 2015.
Yes,
I
believe so.
Yeah. I think they were canon, because there were books written before 2015.
Yeah, but those have been...
I think they've been
uncanonized, which is unfortunate, but I guess they wanted to make it so that they would actually have some surprises for the new trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, I think also they wanted just a clean slate. They wanted full creative reach. Yeah. But yeah, so as I say, the story behind this question appears in The Perfect Weapon, as I say, which is a short story where a bounty hunter called Bazine.
Ooh, Bazine.
I think that's her name. That's what I've appeared to. That's what's come up. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, whether it's Bazine. I don't know. But she's actually seen in The Force Awakens. She's the bounty hunter that turns Rey and Finn into the First Order.
Oh, is
the one in Maz?
The lady with it almost looks like a wetsuit.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently, as we know, she did appear in The Force Awakens, and she was in sort of Maz Kanata's, whatever her name is. I can never.
Something like Katana.
Katana. Itchy Bitchy.
Wait, isn't Katana someone from Suicide Squad?
No. Isn't Katana a Japanese weapon? Who knows?
I don't know.
But yeah, she turns them in. Obviously, that's not important to this story. But Bazine goes on a mission to retrieve a package paid for by mysterious figure.
Ooh, mysterious figure.
I know. Yeah, it's quite funny actually, because she gets the mission from a droid recording, which then self-destructs once the droid plays the recording.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah,
Mission Impossible style.
Yeah, Mission Impossible-esque. And obviously, The Incredibles ripped that off from Mission Impossible as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so that destroys after she hears it, but it sends her on the mission to find this package wherever it is. And on her mission, she's basically sent to a psychiatric institute.
Oh my! They have those in Star Wars?
Apparently they do.
Oh my God.
I mean, mental health, I suppose, means something in the Star Wars universe. Or
I guess when you're in a galaxy which is massive, I guess a lot of people, must feel quite insignificant. So, a lot of existential crises in the Star Wars universe.
Hey, yeah. All paid for by the GHS, the Galactic Health Service.
Very nice. Nicely done.
Thank you. But yeah, she goes to that psychiatric institute. But interestingly, the institute was once I think a retirement home for stormtroopers.
Oh, what? Oh my God. This is a whole different...
I know, it's quite funny.
Is there an actual GHS? Did the Empire, the evil organization, set up a galactic health service? And
it seems like it was kind of
I feel like it would be private healthcare, probably.
Yeah, but these people who were working for the Empire have committed, surely, some kind of galactic crime.
Yeah.
War crimes or whatever. So was it the case that they were just placed under this kind of weird house arrest where they were in some kind of retirement home?
I don't know. Possibly.
Were they in prison and then when they got too old, they were sent to... I don't know. It doesn't explain it, but it begs many questions.
It's created more questions so far than you've answered. Yeah, but let's move on, otherwise we'll be here all day.
We definitely will be. But yeah, so apparently these retired stormtroopers have been a long time dead before Bazine turns up to the institute. So obviously it's changed since then. They've all moved on. So she finds the package in a room of a former Empire captain called Jaw Tribulus.
Ooh.
I know, fancy name. And apparently he was there at the Battle of Endor. So that kind of links in the sort of the location as to where we assume that Vader's mask is on Endor,
Yeah.
where Luke burnt it, and he in this sort of story.
That's the last place we as an audience know it was, for sure.
Yeah. So the package was delivered to the mysterious figure because she basically went in the room, found the package, it was there, all like, I mean, it's referred to as the package. I don't know if it's in like a box or if you can actually see that it's Vader's mask. It doesn't specify. But the package is delivered to the mysterious figure. So the theory is that Captain Tribulus found the mask after being stationed on Endor, for some reason took it. I mean, I don't know. It's like, well, I'm owed that at least, so I'm going to take that with me.
I feel like this will be worth something someday.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to sell it on like the galactic eBay.
Oh, wow.
Or, yeah, so...
To be honest, like if you found Darth Vader's melted helmet in a forest, I feel like you'd keep it too.
I imagine I would store it. I don't know, probably not on the mantelpiece, but definitely in a box.
It feels like
in
something
the
I
garage.
would definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I can't see why you wouldn't.
You found this bunch of, what I'm guessing is a burnt up corpse at this point, you know?
Yeah,
with Darth Vader's melted helmet, and you're like, bingo.
Yeah. It's like finding, I don't know, in like 20 years, we find like Trump's wig. I'm going to take that. I'm definitely going to take that.
Yeah.
As I say, it won't go on the mantelpiece, but I'll definitely store it.
It will be a talking point, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, the assumption is that the mysterious figure, the client, is Kylo Ren. Mm-hmm. The package is the mask or helmet. But essentially, it's a question of who knows. They're incredibly ambiguous even in this story. So they don't actually reference Kylo Ren or Darth Vader's helmet. But it is assumed through some kind of theory that that is the case. It's heavily implied.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the theory still stands. Because there was another theory before I think this came out, was that Luke took the mask with him, and then Kylo Ren stole it, took it with him after he created that whole storm, and so I mean that's pretty much what I have on that question. But yeah, it begs again a lot more questions.
Oh yeah,
I mean, a stormtrooper retirement home.
That is something I did not know was a thing.
Yeah, I know.
Now I think about it, probably a very good idea. You know, that the Empire would set up this stormtrooper retirement home.
Yeah, but the fact that he was there after the Battle of Endor implies that the New Republic was still... I mean, yeah, okay, it brings up a lot of questions. I won't go into it too much, but it does make you really think about the sort of the more sort of like social aspects, like social care and infrastructure, and you know, I mean, I'm quite into politics, so this kind of like it's made me think quite heavily about these things.
The politics of Star Wars.
It's possibly like I think that was one of the big things like that was against the prequel trilogy was that it was too heavily political. I don't care. I love the politics. Bring it on. I want a whole trilogy of it. But no, I know that's not common consensus. So I'll stop talking now.
I would like to cover the fact that in the original trilogy... Oh, no, let me rephrase it. In the prequel trilogy, Anakin Skywalker's mother is a slave, but by the time you get to the original trilogy, slaves are no longer a thing. So here's a question. Did the Galactic Empire get rid of slavery? Because...
Well...
good on them if that's the case.
Do you know what? If that's what they've... I mean, it's... Yeah.
I feel like it's a question for another day, but a question I will continue to bring up.
Definitely.
Did
the Empire do good?
Yeah, did the Empire do good?
What were their actual reforms, you know?
I guess we'll one day find
Well, they
out.
centralized government, so that really helped in terms of like... If you want to make a complaint, you know exactly who to go to.
Just a lot of forms, you know,
let's cut down on the bureaucracy, you know, we don't need it.
Absolutely. A centralized government is just the way to go.
Yeah, definitely is. Anyway, moving on from politics and the lark, that kind of explains, in a kind of roundabout way, again, a lot of these things are ambiguous, but it gives you an idea of where it might have come from. But yeah, that one's all ticked off. So Charlie, do you want to tell us the next question and what you found?
Question 2 is, how old was Kylo Ren when he turned to the dark side? So after I finished watching the new trilogy, when I saw the flashback with Luke and Kylo Ren, I assumed he was maybe about 15 or 16. I feel like that was a fair assumption to make.
Yeah.
He was actually a little bit older than that, like not too far off. He was actually, from my research, I've discovered he was 23. So it's not officially stated, but I've done the maths. He was born in the year 5 ABY, which is after Battle of Yavin.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the maths bit is a... Yeah.
So he was born in 5 ABY on Chandrila, which we mentioned in
No way!
The last
Well, I guess
episode,
that would
yeah.
make sense if that's where Leia's spending most of her
The
time.
new
Republic,
capital,
yeah.
And then in 28 ABY, that was when the destruction of the Jedi Temple was. So by a quick bit of maths, which I'm not going to lie, I did do on my calculator, he would be 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they don't mess around.
Absolutely.
They're brilliant.
Yeah, so a bit of context around this. I thought, as this is such an easy question to answer of just how old is he? He's this old. I thought I'd kind of fill in a bit more, because we went into it a bit last time, some of Kylo Ren's backstory with training and stuff. So I thought I'd kind of, to fill out this question a bit more, just go into more about what he was doing when he turned and things like that.
Definitely,
to fill out the
Well, it's
the
quite
story
a
of
direct,
Kylo Ren
factual
a bit.
question.
Yeah.
Once you know, you know.
Yeah.
But fill us in, Charles.
I will indeed. So I thought I'd start a little bit earlier, and he began his training when he was 10, so a little bit older than they started it.
Because the younglings were sort of almost 5 years old or something.
Yeah.
It was
so
really young.
It's significantly older than what the younglings would be, but I wonder if that was a choice by Luke or something to start the training later because you're older, more mature. I don't know, but
Again, brings up a lot of questions.
yeah. So the first thing in his change to the dark side was in the same year, 28 ABY. Ben Solo learned about the true nature of his grandfather. So he was probably brought up. I'm just speculating on this, but he was probably brought up being taught how Anakin Skywalker eventually brought balance to the Force and killed the Emperor. He might not have been aware before that point that he was a child murderer.
Yeah.
Yes. So
yes, that's...
he learned the true identity of his grandfather, and it's in quite an unfortunate way. It was brought out by one of Leia's political rivals, which is, man, that is a smear campaign if I ever saw one.
That's obviously going to affect you as a child.
Yeah.
I assume he was a child when he found that out.
No, that was when he was 23.
Oh.
Yeah,
So
it does beg the question of, who do you think he was before? Yeah, Anakin Skywalker. He was this great Jedi who did nothing for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And then he
just
killed the
popped up.
Emperor.
Then he just
Yeah.
turned up again just towards the end of the Battle of...
And did nothing in
Oh.
between, yeah. It's a little bit, kind of strange that he never thought, or it was never brought up that his grandfather was Darth Vader. I feel like that's something you would bring up sooner.
But that's definitely something that, especially, I'd say, in sort of teenage years, when you become more intelligent,
Yeah.
and you're sort of more aware of these things, it must have been sort of maybe even talked about, known. And then at that age, even at that age, you are still really inquisitive.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I feel like, that's sort of very interesting, that one.
One thing I've learned from this research is Ben Solo was kind of, even with this grandfather reveal, he was a neglected child anyway, really. I mean, I'm sad to say this, but I don't think Leia and Han were the best parents to him, really.
Yeah, you do get that hint sort of in the films, I think.
Yeah,
they kind of throw that
they
in there.
did kind of send him away at a young age, and that just added to his feelings of neglect, and he always felt overshadowed by Luke Skywalker, by Darth Vader, by his parents. So that was always weighing down on him, this feeling of I want to be as good as my parents and grandparents, and that always weighed heavily on him.
Pressure, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I feel like he was not that he was doomed to fail, but it wasn't the best of circumstances, really. Both Luke and Snoke saw this potential in him because he was a very powerful Force user. Snoke, when he became aware of this darkness, he was immediately yeah, this is the guy I want to be my pupil. This is my guy. And when Skywalker found out about it, of course, we know what happened. He saw the darkness in it. They clashed sabers. The temple was destroyed. All that good stuff.
Everything we see in Last Jedi.
Yeah, and you can find out more about in episode 1 or 2. Was it episode 1 or 2? It was episode 1, I think.
Yes, I believe it was.
We cannot tell what episode it is,
I get lost, to be honest, because they...
We've done 2 episodes and can't remember which bit was in which.
I know.
Oh, wow. The temple was razed to the ground. He was unable to save some of his fellow Jedi, which kind of added to his feeling of inadequacy, which weren't great. But then he heard a voice in his head, which was the voice of Snoke. It's not officially stated, but it's fair to assume that this voice in his head was the voice of Snoke. Well, Palpatine. It was the voice of Palpatine.
Palpatine.
Yeah.
Papa Palps.
So this voice told him that it wasn't your fault. It's all going to be okay. This was Skywalker's fault. This was the Jedi's fault.
Bit of casual manipulation.
That's why he kind of never forgave Luke, because in his mind he always thought it was Luke's fault that like the temple was destroyed. It was Luke's fault that I failed as a Jedi.
Well, it's really important to note also at that point, he hadn't even fallen to the dark side.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, yeah, he was having dark thoughts, which actually is quite natural.
Yeah.
In any kind of like, adolescent, young adult who's growing up, whatever, you're going to have those feelings of doubt and you're never sure of what's going to go on in life generally. So, I mean... Yeah, no, it's quite upsetting.
There was
really.
to jump forward a bit in his story. There was an interesting moment which kind of proved the way he really felt inside, where he was training with Snoke on none other than Dagobah.
Yeah,
in this place, and I love this name called the Cave of Evil, which is just the most amazing cliche name.
See, I feel like I've heard that before. I've seen it before it was like a cutscene again in as I mentioned before, there's a game called The Force Unleashed.
Okay.
But it was the second innings of that game, so Force Unleashed 2.
Yeah.
But he goes into a cave of which Yoda is, sat in front and sort of gives him a little bit of candid advice. But then he goes in and then there's this whole thing. But I think that might be referencing that, maybe?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it kind of references as well the cave that Luke went into and stuff. So maybe it's the same cave.
Maybe they're the same thing.
But yeah, in this cave, he saw an apparition of Luke, which he fought and had no trouble. Like, he killed this apparition. But then he saw an apparition of his parents. And even then, under the training of Snoke, he was unable to even fight them, even though he knew they were just apparitions.
Which, again, it sort of begs a philosophical question again about, like, are there actual absolutes either way you swing it?
Yeah.
It seems like the Force, dark side and light side, is very much a spectrum.
Absolutely, yeah. Like,
the whole thing of dealing with absolutes in that way.
Yeah.
It kind of encourages sort of bad practice and interesting behavior from both sides.
Yeah.
Definitely. It brings up, like, again, what Anakin was going for when he was saying, the Jedi are evil. They're all, we could go on for ages on that, but yeah.
Maybe we will one day.
Maybe we will.
So he was kind of he needed leadership in his life, and that was where Snoke was the prime person to come in and tell him. And so that kind of, Snoke, instead of making him feel overshadowed by his parents and stuff, he was like, you need to forge your own path, and that encouraged him to abandon his name, abandon his legacy, as it were, because he would always feel overshadowed by it, even though in a sense he was stronger than Luke and he was stronger than Anakin.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to feel overshadowed by a name which anyone can just pick up on a whim.
So if you remember in episode 1, where he initially met the Knights of Ren at a Jedi outpost.
I really loved that little story.
Oh, yeah.
It was very nice. As I said,
nice.
like, that should have been a film.
It should have been a film.
Do you know what? Let's make that film right now.
Absolutely. I'm going to pause this. Stop this.
Let's
go
whip
make
out
the film.
Yeah, we'll get a camera. We'll get a cast. We'll run it. It'll be amazing.
I feel like nothing could go wrong. Yeah. So he went back to that outpost because a detail I don't think I mentioned last time was during this skirmish, Ren, not Kylo Ren, Ren of the Knights of Ren, he left behind his helmet, but that was almost like an intentional decision because Ren had sensed that Ben Solo had that darkness within him. He wanted Ben to have some way to communicate with him. So now that Ben has abandoned the Jedi and become, I think he's just Kylo at this point, not Kylo Ren, because he's not part of the Ren. Right. He went back to this outpost, found the helmet, and that was a direct line of communication between him and the Knights of Ren. So it led him to a place called Varnak, something like that, in the Mid-Rim. Who
knows?
And he met the 3 remaining Jedi there, which is where he had the fight with them again in episode
one of them.
1. Yeah, by accident, but
well, it's always accident the first time, isn't it?
Whoops. But then he met the Knights of Ren on this planet, and they were just hanging out in a cantina, which I absolutely what?
It's like, we've had a really rough day. We've lost our leader
at the bar.
Let's go have a stiff drink.
So they wanted to test his dedication to the Jedi, and Kylo took responsibility for Hennix, who was one of the Jedi's death, even though it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
And the Knights were like, "Oh, you need to sacrifice something," and Kylo Ren was like, "Oh no, I've sacrificed my Jedi identity. I killed in air quotes.
Haven't I done enough?"
Yeah, essentially that's what he said.
What a job interview.
he kind of trained with them. He became Kylo Ren, and after a while, with Snoke's kind of blessing, he became leader of the Knights of Ren. And
so, Ren leaving his helmet, like, where did Ren go?
I don't know.
Is it not specified?
Because I have yet to find out where Ren actually went, because he kind of...
He's in the stories,
and then he just... Because I believe he's still in the Knights of Ren at the point where Kylo goes to meet them at this point.
Right, okay.
But then, I don't know whether it was maybe some kind of, like, coup by Snoke to, like, get rid of the leader and put his person or his puppet, that's the word, in their place. So they kept saying, you need to make this sacrifice. And that sacrifice was ultimately what led to him killing Han Solo. That was his great sacrifice. So in episode 7, when he's like, I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it.
So again, was filling in the information.
Sacrifice,
right. Yeah.
I don't know if that's confirmed, but to me, that makes sense as like
I think so.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is sort of bridging gaps in knowledge, which is already out there.
Yeah, so to sum up, that happened when he was 23.
Well, thank you, Charlie. A fantastic answer to the question.
Thank you. So, shall we move on?
You've really elaborated well. I'm impressed.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was the most long-winded way of saying 23 I've ever done.
Well, yeah. Great job.
Do you want to move on to question 3? What was question 3 again?
So question 3 was, what is Kylo Ren now finishing that Darth Vader started? So obviously you hear in the film, he says, grandfather or something like that, I must help me finish what you started or something like that. It's something along those lines. He's sort of almost, for lack of a better word, praying to Darth Vader.
Yeah.
He basically thinks of Darth Vader as this kind of god, I think. But so he's essentially referring to the elimination and destruction of all Jedi. I think that's quite obvious as the sort of if you're hitting the surface, that's surface level kind of what you'd imagine. And then I sort of thought a bit harder about it, and it could possibly be the crushing of any rebellions and any kind of democracy. So basically the whole kind of dark side, empire, supremacy, I think was what it was going for. I mean, this is not addressed directly, but it's hinted at sort of considering this was Darth Vader's legacy, you'd imagine it would be.
I feel like
implied that was what was going on.
Yeah, when I asked this question in 2015, I think it was more of a kind of, will this come back to be like, will this legacy be referenced again? Will it be expanded upon? But I think, like you say, the most obvious interpretation of it is Sith rule, get rid of the Jedi.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the conclusion I've come to. Obviously, we all know that Anakin Skywalker was redeemed in episode 6. But I sort of did a bit of research, read a couple of things, and it sort of inferred that perhaps Kylo didn't know this. Yeah. There's, I'll go into that now. So Kylo had been, sadly, though, through no fault of his own, brainwashed into believing that Darth Vader was some kind of a god or a dark side martyr. Yeah. So I sort of put perhaps Vader's turn back to the light was only known to a sort of select few people. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of obvious in itself. The only people that are there are sort of Luke and the Emperor, that sort of see that. I mean, the Emperor, only a little bit. Only saw it for a few seconds.
I mean, he only saw a bit of it before he was thrown off that balcony.
Yeah. So, I've also sort of read a few things where it says Luke may not have told his sort of new students about the whole turn back from the dark side to the light. Yeah. Sort of maybe using the fall of Darth Vader as a cautionary tale. Not wanting to sort of go into the whole thing of that you could, you can just go to the dark side for a week or something. Yeah. And then come on back to the light whenever, swing on down to Light Street.
I wonder if it's because in, the question we just had, it was established that like Kylo Ren found out about Darth Vader being Anakin Skywalker when he was like, before he left the Jedi and stuff. I wonder if, like you say, that explains why he was so shocked about it, because it was almost like the two people hadn't been put together in his mind.
No,
really.
Exactly. Yeah. They'd been kept pretty separate. So you didn't really know that Darth Vader had... I mean, again, in the same way that Obi-Wan, the certain point of view speech,
Yeah.
you know, where he's saying that,
From a certain point of view.
yeah, like that. I didn't say anything. You just did your thing. And, I was being completely honest. Maybe that was like sort of done to him as well. They kept it. They wanted to basically show that Anakin Skywalker had no affiliation with Darth Vader. He was this wonderful Jedi that killed the Emperor. I don't know if that were the case. That might not have been the case, but it seems like maybe he was spun a tale, whether that was for his own good or not. But it appeared to.
It's one thing learning stories and stuff, but it's another thing knowing like the actual events of what happened.
Yeah, and you know, Luke might have seen that as a personal thing for himself.
Yeah.
And perhaps didn't tell him. I mean, even if he did tell him, it's easy enough to sort of think that, him coming back to the light, that was a mistake on Darth Vader's part.
Yeah.
Or just to straight out say, no. Well, because only Luke was there. Luke could have just been spinning a tail again. And
I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. Just been going, just he turned to the lights. Oh, no, he didn't. You just killed him. You know, so I don't know. It begs a lot of questions. But yeah, so it sort of delves more into the sort of the mentality of Kylo Ren here.
Yeah.
You know, what stage he was at, what he was thinking. And it's a shame that he didn't have anyone he could go to, it seemed like, in terms of, as you were saying earlier, a kind of father figure where he could sort of air these questions. It seems like Luke wasn't that figure to him. It seems like in almost a Jedi way, he separated himself from Kylo, which was quite a dangerous thing to have done.
It's one of those things. It was probably from a perspective of he thought he was doing good by not like picking Kylo out of the group because he's like his nephew kind of thing. Probably maybe like being, like you say, more isolated from him and stuff.
Definitely.
But yeah, like that was a real hindrance to Kylo Ren, who I think suffered from like lack of a decent parental figure in his life, really, which was, you know, the failure of our trio from the original series, really.
I mean, you definitely argue that it has the same tones as Anakin, in that Anakin had no one to speak to because he was sort of led to believe that was completely banned, and any talk of it, you know, you'd be kicked out the Jedi Order. It's all awful.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe Kylo Ren was spun that as well, you know, told, you know, we can't have those kind of emotions. I don't know, you know, I haven't done enough research into it to know how Luke went about teaching these things, whether he stuck to purely Jedi principles. But it would seem to me that would be a mistake if he did. And would maybe lead to that. But it is a big shame. But essentially, the question in itself comes back to the fact that he's looking at Darth Vader as this dark figure that destroys everything. And I think he really idealized Darth Vader, really wanted to sort of mirror his success. And him saying, I'll finish what you started, is essentially him basically pulling all the ideologies from dark side Darth Vader and trying to apply them to his training. Yeah. But that's essentially what I came up with. Yeah. So that answers the question, I suppose. Yeah. I mean, again, it's mostly philosophical there, but I feel like we you know, it gives you food for thought, an idea of maybe what was going through his mind. Again, we don't know that, but it's worth a little talk about.
Absolutely,
I reckon. So Charlie, tell us.
Thanks for listening to episode 3 of How Uncivilized. If you enjoyed learning about Kylo Ren, there's still so much more to find out, coming in episode 4 next week.
You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. How Uncivilized was created, produced, and edited by Charlie Feasby and Spencer Lawrence.